The fluorescent lights of Sterling Tech's executive floor hummed their usual monotonous tune, but tonight they seemed to buzz with an almost accusatory pitch. Dr. Rachel Sterling stood motionless in her corner office, staring at the city lights below while her phone vibrated incessantly against the mahogany desk. Board members, investors, crisis management teams, everyone wanted a piece of her tonight. Everyone demanded answers about the data breach that threatened to destroy everything she'd built. But none of them were calling about what truly mattered. Her daughter, Emma, had stopped speaking again. Rachel's reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window showed a woman who looked nothing like the confident CEO featured in Forbes last month. Her designer suit hung differently now, weighted down by guilt she couldn't quite name. She checked her watch. 9:47 p.m. Emma would be asleep by now in their penthouse apartment, watched over by the third nanny this year. Rachel had promised to be home by dinner. That was 8 hours ago. She grabbed her briefcase with trembling hands, finally ready to leave, when her assistant burst through the door. Dr. Sterling, there's a situation in the building. Security found your daughter on the 4th floor. She's having an episode. Rachel's blood turned to ice. The briefcase hit the floor with a thunderous crack. 3 floors down, near the janitorial offices, 8-year-old Emma Sterling sat curled against a wall, her small body shaking with silent sobs. Her guide dog, a golden retriever named Compass, pressed against her side, whimpering softly. The world around Emma was darkness, as it had been since birth, but right now that darkness felt suffocating, pressing in from all sides like a living thing. She'd woken up in the penthouse, reached for Compass, and felt the overwhelming need to find her mother. The nanny had been asleep on the couch, and Emma knew these hallways by heart now, every turn and texture memorized from the countless evenings she'd spent waiting in her mother's office. But tonight, disoriented and afraid, she'd gotten lost. The familiar had become foreign, and panic had taken root in her chest like thorns. Marcus Webb had been emptying trash bins on the 4th floor when he heard the soft, desperate crying. For a moment, he froze, his weathered hands still gripping his janitorial cart. That sound, the particular pitch of a child in genuine distress, was something no parent could ever forget. It didn't matter that his own daughter, Sophie, was gone now, lost to leukemia 3 years ago. That sound was universal, eternal. He found Emma quickly, guided by Compass's worried barking. The girl was hyperventilating, her fingers clawing at the carpet as if trying to anchor herself to something real. "Hey there, sweetheart," Marcus said softly, crouching down but keeping his distance. He'd learned with Sophie that sometimes space was more comforting than proximity. "I'm Marcus. I'm a friend. Can you hear me?" Emma's head turned toward his voice, but her breathing only quickened. Her fingers found Compass's fur, gripping it desperately. Marcus's mind raced. He recognized this child. He'd seen her photo on Dr. Sterling's desk during his late-night cleaning shifts. He'd also noticed the baby grand piano in the executive lounge, the one drive Sterling apparently kept but never played. An idea formed, possibly foolish, but Sophie had taught him that sometimes foolish was exactly what fear needed. "I'm going to step away for just a moment," Marcus said gently. "Compass is right there with you. I promise I'm not leaving. I'm just going to grab something, okay?" He didn't wait for a response, just moved quickly to the executive lounge, praying it wasn't locked. It wasn't. The piano sat in the corner like a forgotten promise, its polished surface reflecting the emergency exit lights. Marcus hadn't played in months, not since Sophie's funeral when his fingers had found the keys one last time to play her favorite lullaby. He wheeled his cart to block the lounge door open, positioned himself at the piano bench where he could still see Emma in the hallway, and let his fingers hover over the keys. Then he began to play. The melody was simple at first, a gentle progression that Sophie had loved, Claire de Lune. Marcus had played it for her during her worst nights in the hospital when the pain medication wasn't enough and distraction was the only mercy he could offer. His fingers remembered every note, every pause, every crescendo that had once coaxed his daughter back from the edge of despair. In the hallway, Emma's breathing hitched. The sound was unexpected, beautiful, cutting through the chaos in her mind like light through storm clouds. Marcus continued playing, transitioning seamlessly into an improvisation, something between classical and jazz, letting the music speak the words he couldn't. The notes floated down the corridor, wrapping around Emma like a blanket. Her fingers slowly released their death grip on Compass's fur. Her breathing began to match the rhythm of the melody, in on the ascending notes, out on the descending ones. He played a song about grief and hope, about losing everything and finding reasons to wake up anyway. He played about lonely dinners and empty bedrooms, about medical bills that still arrived addressed to a ghost. But he also played about sunrise after the longest night, about the way Sophie's laugh still echoed in his memory like the sweetest refrain, about the choice to keep living even when living hurt. Emma's sobs quieted. She tilted her head, following the music with every fiber of her being. In her darkness, the piano created shapes and colors she couldn't name but could feel. She saw her mother's face in the gentle notes, felt her father's embrace in the deeper chords, a father she'd never known, who'd left before she was born. The music told her she wasn't alone, that someone understood, that this feeling would pass. Slowly, carefully, Emma began to crawl toward the sound. Compass stayed beside her, his tail wagging softly now. She moved inch by inch across the carpet, following the melody like Ariadne's thread through the labyrinth of her fear. Rachel Sterling had been sprinting, actually sprinting, down the stairwell, her heels abandoned somewhere around the 6th floor. She burst onto the 4th floor expecting chaos, emergency responders, her daughter in crisis. Instead, she stopped so abruptly she nearly fell. Piano music filled the corridor. And there was Emma, creeping slowly toward the executive lounge, her face streaked with tears but transfixed, almost peaceful. Compass walked beside her, and at the piano sat a man in a janitor's uniform, his eyes closed, playing with such raw emotion that Rachel felt her own throat tighten. She pressed herself against the wall, suddenly afraid to move, afraid to break whatever spell was being woven. Security guards had gathered at the opposite end of the hallway, but Rachel waved them back frantically. Not yet. Don't interrupt this. Marcus transitioned into something slower, gentler. He sensed Emma was close now, could hear her small hands patting the carpet. He opened his eyes and saw her there, 5 feet away, her face turned up toward him with an expression of such pure vulnerability it nearly broke him. "Hi there," he said softly, still playing with one hand while the other traced a simpler melody. "I'm Marcus. Are you feeling a little better?" Emma nodded, just barely. "My daughter Sophie used to get scared too," Marcus continued, his voice blending with the music. "Real scared, especially at night. I'd play piano for her, just like this." She couldn't see much toward the end either, the medicine made her vision blurry. But she could always hear the music. She said it made pictures in her mind. "Do you see pictures?" "Colors," Emma whispered, her first word in 3 days. "I see colors. Blue and gold and silver." Marcus smiled, even as tears gathered in his eyes. "Those are beautiful colors." Sophie saw purple and green. "Every person sees something different, I think. The music knows what you need to see." He returned to playing with both hands now, something more hopeful, more alive. Emma inched closer until she was right beside the piano bench. Hesitantly, she reached out her hand, and Marcus stopped playing long enough to take it gently. "Would you like to try?" he asked. Emma nodded. Marcus shifted on the bench, making room for her. She climbed up beside him, her small fingers hovering over the keys with uncertainty and wonder. He placed his weathered, calloused hand over hers and together they pressed down on middle C. The note resonated through the lounge, pure and clear. "Now you try by yourself," Marcus encouraged. Emma pressed another key, then another. The notes were random, discordant, but to Marcus they were the most beautiful sound in the world because they meant she was no longer frozen in fear. She was creating something. She was here, present, alive. "You're a natural," he said warmly. "With some practice, you could really play. Music doesn't need eyes, just heart." From the hallway, Rachel watched her daughter smile, actually smile, for the first time in weeks. Something deep inside her chest cracked open, some calcified chamber she'd sealed off years ago when Emma's father left, when the blindness diagnosis came, when success became her armor and ambition her shield against feeling too much. She'd given Emma everything money could buy, the best specialists, the finest schools, state-of-the-art technology. Everything except the one thing that apparently mattered most. Time, presence, music in the darkness. Rachel found herself walking forward, her bare feet silent on the carpet. Emma's head turned at some sound Rachel must have made, and her daughter's face transformed. "Mommy." The word was a prayer and an accusation and a hope all at once. Marcus immediately moved to stand, understanding with the instinct of a parent that this was a private moment. But Rachel gently touched his shoulder. "Please, don't stop playing," she said, her voice thick. "She needs it. I think I need it too." Marcus hesitated, then nodded and returned to the keys. He played softly now, creating a backdrop for mother and daughter rather than a performance. Rachel sank to her knees in front of the piano bench, eye level with Emma. She reached out and cupped her daughter's face, feeling the dried tears, the warmth of her skin, the rapid flutter of her pulse in her throat. "I'm so sorry," Rachel whispered. "I'm so sorry, baby. I thought I was doing everything right, but I was doing everything wrong. The most important thing. I forgot the most important thing." "What's that?" Emma asked, her voice small. "That you don't need a CEO. You need a mom." Emma's lower lip trembled. "I just wanted you to tuck me in. I just wanted you to be there when I woke up. I know you're important and busy, but sometimes I wish I was important too." The words shattered Rachel completely. She pulled Emma into her arms, right there on the piano bench, and held her daughter the way she should have been holding her for months, for years. Marcus continued playing, his music a gentle shelter for their reunion. "You are the most important thing in my entire world," Rachel said fiercely. "Not the company, not the career, not any of it. You. Just you. And I'm going to prove it. Starting right now. Starting tonight." Marcus felt his cue to leave, but as he moved to stand, Emma reached out blindly and caught his sleeve. "Don't go," she said. "Please keep playing. It helps." Marcus looked at Rachel, who nodded, tears streaming freely down her face now. So he stayed and played, and Rachel held her daughter, and for 20 minutes in that executive lounge, three wounded souls found something like peace in the space between the notes. Eventually, Emma's head drooped against her mother's shoulder, exhaustion finally claiming her. The crisis had passed, but the music continued, softer now, a lullaby for a child who'd fought too hard to feel safe. When Marcus finally let the last notes fade, Rachel spoke quietly, careful not to wake Emma. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus Webb, ma'am. I'm part of the night maintenance crew." "You have a gift, Marcus. That wasn't just playing, that was healing. Where did you learn to play like that?" Marcus's fingers traced the smooth keys one last time. "My daughter Sophie. She was sick for a long time. Music was the only thing that helped sometimes, when nothing else could. I learned to play for her. After she passed, I thought I'd never touch a piano again. Tonight was the first time in 3 years." Rachel's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I'm so sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry you almost had one of your own," Marcus said gently. "Kids need their parents present, not just providing. I learned that too late with Sophie, spent so much time working extra shifts to pay medical bills that I missed time I could have had with her. Time I can never get back. But you still have time, drive. Sterling, don't waste it like I did." The words were a gift and a warning, delivered with such gentle authority that Rachel could only nod. She carried Emma back to the penthouse that night, but not before getting Marcus's contact information. The next morning, she didn't go to work. She called an emergency board meeting and announced she was taking a 3-month sabbatical, effective immediately. There was uproar, accusations, threats. She didn't care. For the first time in years, Rachel Sterling's priorities were crystal clear. She also made another call that morning, this one to Marcus Webb. "How would you feel about giving piano lessons?" she asked. "I think Emma needs a teacher. And honestly, I think I need to learn too." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I'm just a janitor, drive. Sterling, I'm not trained, not certified, not." "You're exactly what we need," Rachel interrupted. "You understand something that all the credentials in the world can't teach. You understand what matters. Will you help us?" Marcus thought about Sophie, about how she'd made him promise to keep living, to keep sharing his music. He thought about Emma's small fingers on the piano keys, creating hope from chaos. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yeah, I think I can do that." 3 months later, the executive lounge had been transformed into a music room. The piano remained the centerpiece, but now it was surrounded by comfortable chairs, shelves of books in Braille, and photographs, some new, some old. One showed a smiling girl with no hair but infinite joy in her eyes. Sophie's picture sat on the piano, guardian angel to all who played there. Emma had flourished under Marcus's gentle instruction. She played daily now, her confidence growing with each session. But more importantly, she spoke freely, laughed often, and knew with absolute certainty that when she woke in the night, her mother would be there. Rachel had learned to play too, though she'd never match Marcus's skill. But that wasn't the point. The point was, sitting side by side with her daughter on the piano bench, their fingers creating something beautiful together. The point was being present. Marcus had been promoted from night janitor to music therapist, a newly created position at Sterling Tech. It turned out that a company full of stressed executives and overworked employees desperately needed what he offered. The music room became a sanctuary, and Marcus became its keeper, playing for anyone who needed healing. On the one-year anniversary of that crisis night, Emma gave a small recital in the music room. She played Clair de Lune, the piece Marcus had played for her in her darkest moment. Her fingers weren't perfect, and she missed a few notes, but the emotion she poured into the music was flawless. When she finished, the small audience erupted in applause. Rachel was crying, of course, but this time with pure joy. Marcus stood off to the side, clapping until his hands hurt, thinking Sophie would have loved this, would have been proud. Emma stood from the piano bench and spoke to the gathered crowd with more confidence than seemed possible for a 9-year-old. "I used to think being blind meant living in darkness," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But Mr. Marcus taught me something important. Darkness is only scary when you're alone. When someone sits beside you and plays music, when someone takes the time to help you see with different eyes, suddenly the darkness isn't so dark anymore. It's just different. And different can be beautiful." She turned toward where she knew Marcus was standing. "Thank you for finding me that night. Thank you for staying. Thank you for teaching me that the best things in life don't need to be seen, they need to be felt." Marcus couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. He simply walked over and pulled Emma into a hug. This child who'd somehow helped heal the part of him he'd thought was broken forever. Rachel joined them, wrapping her arms around them both, and in that moment, they were more than CEO and janitor, more than teacher and student. They were a family forged not by blood but by music, by crisis, by the choice to show up for each other when it mattered most. The piano stood silent now, but its presence was a promise. Tomorrow they would play again. And the day after that. And every day after, for as long as they had together, creating beauty in the darkness, finding light in the spaces between the notes, proving that sometimes the most profound healing comes not from the grand gestures but from simply being present, simply offering what you have, simply playing music for a frightened child and meaning it with your whole heart. Outside the windows, the city lights blazed against the night sky. But inside the music room, a different kind of light burned steady and true. The light of connection, of second chances, of love that shows up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because that's when it matters most.